Welcome to the Yara Technologies Vodcast series. Through this program, we bring short conversations with senior educators on contemporary topics related to education and education technology.
Welcome to Yara Technologies Vodcast series. I'm Shara Osman. Through this program, we bring short conversations with senior educators in the education segment on contemporary topics related to education. I'm delighted to have Ms. Anitra Perera, the Managing Director and Coordinating Principal of the Alethea Group of Schools, consisting of Alethea School and Alethea International School. Anitra is a fourth-generation member of the Alethea Group and Director of ABC Study Links Private Limited. She received the award for Edupreneur Director of the Year in 2019 and Best Standalone School and Best Infrastructure of the Year award, which are international school awards held at a global level. This marks her as the first under 30 edupreneur to receive an international award and bring fame to her nation. She was named in the 35 under 35 list by the Cosmopolitan Sri Lanka magazine for changing the game of education. Anitra is a well-known top-tier entrepreneur and edupreneur in Sri Lanka. She is also known to be a trailblazer and animal lover. Good evening, Anitra. Thank you for joining the program.
Good evening. My pleasure.
So my first question for you is, looking beyond the pandemic, once the school reopens on a continuous basis, do you accept to continue with a part of your online learning platform and move into a blended learning model? If so, what aspects would be taught online learning versus the physical classroom?
Oh, I like the word where you emphasize continuous basis. That's something which we have not seen for the last 1.5 years. But I do believe that the center of any educational process is the human relationship between student and teacher. That's my philosophy. When it comes to the question for schools with resources, it is possible. After all, COVID-19 has taught us much and pushed us into the deep end of technology overnight. I mean, actually, from speaking of experience, for us, it was overnight. We should certainly assess what we have worked and retain the elements of online platform. So yes, we can call it blended learning. Many of these tech-based teaching aid use can continue when school reopens physically. Aspects such as session-based attendance, online PTI, that's like parents, teachers, information meetings, assessment feedback to individual students through remedial classes, all can be the comfort of a home, and all this is possible takeaways of online learning. Online learning is famously flexible, which I think we are quite used to these days. And when we think of online, the main activities that come to a head are presentations, quizzes. That first thing is I would think of. And this is an important element to online learning because it's live. Live learning increases engagement by adding the human elements. But I said, in any education process, it's the human relationship between the student and the teacher. It is especially beneficial for learners who are not self-sufficient and who are used to traditional teacher and class model of education, which is very popular in Sri Lanka. Live learning also lessons are particularly important in any course as it gives us learners a chance to receive feedback on elements of their learning, which is impossible to measure in self-marking quizzes. In some ways, there are different you could take in that live learning lessons are similar to traditional face-to-face classes. A teacher can present information, can interact with the group in real time. In other ways, there are some important differences, which I would like to think that will be very important for us. And the first essential difference is the classroom management. In a physical classroom, a teacher is free to move around the lessons, in grouping them in different ways. And laying where you have the children in their different groups or in according to their standards, this will make activities run smoothly. Most online classes and conferencing software can also use breakout groups through Zoom. Even on Teams, we can go into different channels. but different arrangements for learners are possible in the classroom. However, in reality, most effective way to conduct an online lesson is often a teacher presented to manage the whole group. Because of this, online classes work best when they're kept to small numbers, which we at Alethea kind of do. Another difference is the use of the back channels. Back channels are particularly popular in education situations such as lectures. I mean, we use this at A-level classes where the audience is expected to sit and listen for a longer period in time. In the past, we have had these back channels are often banned on mobile phones, and nowadays progressive lectures can take place. So online classrooms usually use a text function built which can act as a back channel for the audience so that they can engage fully. In online classes, the lack of visual feedback is a common challenge for teachers. And I think parents also are trying to get parents involved in this to try to kind of bridge that gap. But when presenting directly to an audience in the same room, we can adopt the same delivery depending on the visual feedback from the audience of a full room where you have a full room and as small numbers, there is a big difference to introduce this interesting activity. The secrecy of not being physically present in a classroom can benefit learners attending online sessions. Learners need to feel afraid to raise their own issues, which at the start, when I felt with the lessons that our teachers are conducting, children were not comfortable. But now 1.5 years down the line, children are comfortable to raise their hand and ask questions through the online. Likewise, learners are also physical with physical disability, which we see with our special needs kids, also can take part in this traditional classroom activities, which is no disadvantage in virtual learning, and all participants are equal. So when you're looking at summing up the difference between physical and online learning, it depends on the hands-on well-trained of the teacher. Both delivery methods can be used to achieve the same goal. Which one you choose depends on the logistics of delivering and the subject matter thought on. However, I would say in a globalized workplace, live learning online can become increasingly an obvious choice for any professional development program. So yes, I would say there are things that we can take into a blended learning model, but the focus has to be on the teacher who brings it live, even though if it's online or physical. That would be my take on that.
Thank you, Ms. Anitra, for your informative talk. So my next question is, during the last 1 year or so, the majority of schools and educators adopted online learning models with reasonable success. These learning models with some twists are quite scalable, as it now gives students in different geographic access to educators in based a central location. Would this lead to a cross-border or cross-direct schooling model in the near or medium term?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yes, it is a feasible option for schools with resources to open those to parents who might want to keep educating their educating the students from home. This is also an exciting new opportunity to further explore the technology available to teachers to learn this process. The transformative trends underway call for suitable policies and strategies. What are the new policies for the direction for local and international? The main issue, I think, when it comes to this, where we can take this in the medium and the long term, would be the striking of the side digital, that is physical and digital balance. The exponential growth in online learning may reduce physical mobility, but enabling digital mobility, which we are at the current, which we are all going through now. However, full online programs do not provide critical dimensions for international study. I'm talking about tertiary education. But for schools, it could include intercultural exchanges in physical settings. Student services in different, like say, a group of students can experience another set of how education is in Malaysia, Australia. This also helps us as teachers even to cross-border learning and teaching and to improve the standards. So hence, schools or any educational institutions need to find the right balance to provide optimal learning benefits to students. Business models also need to be recalibrated for students, greater regional mobility and equitable access for international education is needed. And however, in the Asia Pacific region, this will strengthen cross-cultural according to regional integration, which I strongly believe and hope as COVID-19 transforms the future of education in different ways, online learning gathers pace, it is vital to rethink ways we support student mobility that benefits individuals, economies, and societies. We should consider ways that the right education might be broaden the fluidity and changing context in our societies.
Thank you, Ms. Anitra, for that very useful insights. So moving on to the next question. Safe to say that technology has been a savior during the pandemic and helped mitigate the disruption to education. However, some of the technology platforms may perhaps be more customized for educators and students from Western and more tech-savvy countries. Going forward, what are the key changes you would like to see in EdTech platforms for them to be more suited for developing countries such as Sri Lanka?
Thank you. I think that's an important question in today's context. When you are looking at the use of digital technologies for learning has generated interest in a number of years. It was actually COVID-19 that actually pushed us to where we are today. In fact, the lightweight of these portable digital devices have liberated learning from being restricted to fixed locations, fundamentally changing the ways knowledge circulates within the societies. And in context of the COVID-19 crisis interest, mobile learning technologies has grown drastically. However, two very distinct situations are often confused. It is one thing to employ digital tools in teachers' pedagogical work with students. In digital societies, it is unthinkable to exclude the school from the possibilities of access knowledge and communication that increasingly is seen necessary as a component of daily life. That we correctly speak of digital divide. It shows us important internet access that device connectivity has become. Here, the efforts should be focused on open license, where we have access to policies that facilitate at no cost or use to reuse and adapt. However, it is very different thing to design teaching and learning ready-made materials content of which reduces the work of teachers and students. Education cannot be defined and controlled by the content and the methods built outside the space, outside of human relationships between teachers and students. The forced scramble of materials platforms must be seen during the pandemic poses a greater risk to teaching profession than it should have a serious consequence or the futures of education. We must ensure the digital transition is not an effort to push technology companies that use teachers, students, or even the government and civil society representatives who are also represented in the transformation of education. We need to acknowledge the division created by accessibility to technology in this country. We cannot call ourselves a non-tech savvy because it never sees that our students do not want a provision in technology. As a nation in Sri Lanka, we have very limited access to technology across the education sector in this country. We need to acknowledge that teachers and students sought ways to use the available technology in creative ways to meet their needs. Finally, create access and you will see how tech savvy we really can get our students in and our teachers. If COVID-19 has brought this level of technology over the 1.5 years, what will Sri Lanka be in the future? I just have a final remark that I would like to give out as to the parents, to the educators. Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. No problem at all.
So my final message would be to the future of education that involves parents, the teachers, and my colleagues in the education field is with words of trust and I hope. The situation we face is so dramatic and difficult that we cannot afford to be pessimistic. We are facing the biggest changes in the education since public schooling emerged in the 19th century. The urgency of this improving on the world is before presents us all with a real challenge and responsibility. We must build narratives that is the new reality could look like. We must have to nourish the resources, give us hope for rethinking what the world works. Education needs to be at the heart of post-COVID world. And for future, we need boldness and thought and courageous action now. And when looking at this, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development provides many of these actions as signposts and guidelines. In their report for International Commission on Education on the Futures of Education, established by UNESCO in 2019, has composed thought for leaders of the world in academia, science, government, business, and education. Presents 9 ideas for concrete actions today that will advance education tomorrow. So I believe the world is in the right step for education, and I'm sure in a couple of years, we'll, as Sri Lanka, also could go in that line. Thank you.
And I have to actually thank the educators, especially the teachers, for doing an immense, thing for these students. You're like God savers.
If not for teachers, I don't know where we'll be today.
I also seriously don't know where, the students and everyone will be. They learned a lot. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yara Technologies' EdTech platform Talkative Parents connects schools, educators, parents and students via one integrated platform. The platform comprises of cross-channel communication, AI-driven data analytics, integrated e-learning, and online school fee payments. You can visit our website or social media pages for more information.